everyone, my name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today I wanted to talk about a subject that I hadn't planned on filming a video for, but some situations have come up recently and I think this is really important to discuss, so that's what we're going to be doing here today. I have not had the opportunity to script anything out, so I apologize in advance if this is kind of rambly or doesn't really seem to connect through, but I am going to try my best. As you guys might be able to tell from some of the other videos that I have on my channel, I think it's really important to talk about issues within the BDSM community. I am normally all about education. I love getting to do the 101 videos and talking about power exchange and asexuality. But I think among all of those things, the most important subject I can really discuss are issues within BDSM itself, because I think for too long, a lot of people have had this perspective that we shouldn't talk too loudly about things when they go wrong, because the vanilla world already thinks that we're all freaks and bad people, and so if we bring it up too much, people are gonna just take that as proof that we're all evil and that we should not be doing what we're doing, and so on and so forth, and kind of just sweeping everything under the rug and pretending that it's all sugar and rainbows because they think that that's best for preserving the BDSM community. And I don't really agree with that. I think the way that we make our community stronger and better is through bringing light to situations and not being afraid to discuss them, to think about solutions, think about how we could do better in the future, and that is something that I want to get into here today. And content warning here, in the past when I have talked about this, it has usually been in the context of abuse that takes the form of people ignoring safe words, people manipulating people in subspace, people trying to introduce sex in scenes where that hadn't been previously negotiated, those sorts of behaviors. And the thing that came up today was not just about that. It was actually a situation that I hadn't really ever heard discussed, because rather than being an in-scene consent issue, this was something about a relationship. And what had happened is on Fetlife, over the course of a couple days, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even more at this point, people came forward to share their stories about a specific person that they had all interacted with. And this person was somebody that on the surface seemed to do and say everything right. They were a master, they had their own BDSM house that they ran, they volunteered a lot, they hosted their own events, they had their own munch, they seemed really friendly and inviting to new people, they tried to have as much education available as possible. They talked a lot in their relationships about the importance of robust negotiation practices and informed consent and safe word usage, and they encouraged their partners to do self-care and were supportive of their mental health, all of these things. And so on the surface, they seemed like the best sort of person that you could hope for in BDSM. They were involved, they were a public player, they were really passionate about education, they talked a lot about all the things that you think somebody should talk about in order to be a quote-unquote good partner. But it seemed that that was not always purely the case, and what had happened was not, as far as I know, situations where anyone had had their safe word disrespected or were told that they weren't allowed to have limits or any of those stereotypical things. Rather, it was about the way that they conducted their relationships, because they would go to one person and say, oh, I'm monogamous, and start a monogamous relationship, supposedly, and then turn around and tell other people that they were in an open relationship or polyamorous, and they would try to keep everybody involved somewhat separated from each other, so basically none of them would be able to compare notes. And the real kicker to this is not just the lying about, oh, I'm monogamous, oh, I'm polyamorous, oh, I have this relationship style, that relationship style. But on top of all of that, they were also lying about condom use. And they were lying to people in the way of saying they had had recent testing done, but then not producing any results. They were coercing people by saying that they were monogamous and exclusive when they really weren't, and obviously the risk profile for that is different, and I'll get into later why that's important. They would kind of hand wave around certain areas, like, for example, the testing that they supposedly had done but never gave proof of. They would hand wave around things in terms of not explicitly telling other partners that they were having sex with somebody else, but then also not necessarily lying to their face about it either. Like, if person A doesn't know that person B exists, they're not going to ask their person if they're having sex with person B if they don't know that they're there. So that's the sort of situation that kept coming up over and over and over again. It's just lies and lies and lies. And then when the relationships would deteriorate, there was gaslighting, there was manipulation, there was every sort of technique that this person could possibly use to try and convince the people that they were involved with that everything was actually really okay, that they had consented to everything, and blah, blah, blah. And it was just overall really quite awful. And I'm skipping over a lot of the details because these are a lot of very detailed stories. There's at least 4 that I read, and so I'm kind of just condensing everything down a little bit, but that is the core of it. Is they were lying about their partnerships, they were lying about condom use, and they were basically trying to convince people to not use condoms whenever possible by whatever means necessary, which is just disgusting. And the reactions to this are what I think is more interesting. Yes, I think it's important to discuss consent and condom use and being honest about your relationship styles. All of that I think is worth talking about. So I'm just going to affirm right now that all that stuff is important. But what I find is more interesting is how we as a community address these situations. Because in the comments of the people who were sharing their stories, there were people who were very supportive, who were coming right out and saying, yes, we believe you, we support you, thank you for sharing this. There were people who then felt empowered by this to go and share their own experiences. There were people apologizing for not recognizing the warning signs, for not realizing that something was wrong because of how powerful and important this person was in their local community. And then you had the people who had a different take on things. There were the people who would look at this and go, what's the big deal? It's not like they were having their safe word violated. It's just cheating. Why is this a big deal? Hand waving it away like, oh, well, what are you saying? That you've never lied to a partner? That you've never cheated on anybody? Who are you to say that this person shouldn't be a community leader because everybody makes mistakes and blah, 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 and just kind of trying to minimize the whole situation as not being a big deal. And then you had an even deeper level of hell where people were arguing that it was the people who had been manipulated's fault because they didn't know better. It was people who would have reactions like, oh, well, me and my submissive, we met this person and we knew right away that they were bad news. We knew right away they just had bad vibes, and so we never went back to their party again. And, maybe if you weren't mentally ill, you would have realized this, and obviously it's a bad idea for people who are mentally ill to be in the BDSM community, and it's irresponsible, and you should have known that this was going to happen to you. And that just absolutely blew my mind. And I think at this point, how long this video is taking, I'm going to have to do a part 2 where I specifically talk about the mentally ill people shouldn't be involved in BDSM thing because obviously they're going to get manipulated and abused because they're mentally ill. That's a whole other freaking subject. What I want to talk about are those first 2 things. The people who think that this isn't a big deal, and the people who think that, oh, you should have just known because obviously they had bad vibes. So, no, this is not a situation where somebody has, as far as I know, ignored safe words, or they have told somebody they're not allowed to have limits, or, branded somebody on the ass without asking about it first. Like, it's certainly not the worst situation we've ever heard of. But the thing is that this shouldn't be a hierarchy where it's you need to be at least this bad for us to care about what happens. I think that is an awful premise because even though, yes, it's not a situation where it's similar to things that we've heard before, it is still a really big deal that somebody who was a community leader, who was running events specifically tailored for new people, was running around and lying about their relationship style to multiple people simultaneously. That is a big deal. I think we should hold the people who run our events, the people who are the pillars of our community, I think they absolutely should be held to a higher standard, because they are the ones who are representing us. They are the people who are there in parades if something fucking happens. They are the people that the news gets a hold of. They are the ones who have their name attached to a certain place and to the BDSM community as a whole. They are the ones who, as the organizers, are going to be the ones that people go to when there are questions, when there are issues, and if they don't represent our values, they should not be the ones hosting and running events. We need to be able to hold them to a higher standard, because they represent us to new people, they represent us to vanilla people, they represent us in general. They are the people who are basically reflecting our values as a BDSM community. So if they can't uphold basic values like informed consent, it's kind of a big deal, because yes, this is an informed consent issue, and this kind of gets more into the why is this a big deal thing. It's a big deal because people were not adequately informed of the risks of the behavior that they were engaging in. If somebody were doing a needle play scene and they were told that the needles were single use and had never been opened before, but then it really turned out that they were reusing needles, that would be a fucking big deal, right? And this is basically the same situation. Is it the exact same risk profile? No, but it's very, very similar, because these people were going into sexual situations with this person not fully understanding what was going on. They thought, oh, they're not having sex with anybody else. Oh, they're using condoms with everybody else. Oh, they have a clean panel that they did last month, that they did 2 weeks ago. When none of that was actually true. Which means that now, at least 4, if not everybody in their entire sexual circle, which means dozens, hundreds, who knows how many people have now been exposed not only to just merely being carriers of sexual infections and diseases, but also of obtaining it for themselves and becoming somebody who's not only a transmitter, but actively has a certain infection and disease. And when you don't actually have evidence of a clean panel, there's no way to know what it is. It could be chlamydia, it could be syphilis, who knows? And that is a big deal. That is, I cannot even imagine what it would be like to go through a situation where you thought you were in a monogamous relationship, you understood through that you were okay not using condoms because you thought you were monogamous, and then it turns out that, oh, this person was having sex with at least 4 other people, not always using condoms, and those people all had their own partners who had their own partners, and now you have been exposed to all of this person's potential ability to transmit diseases. That all is going to you, and I cannot even imagine. And on top of that, the fact that you can't even necessarily test for all of this right away, because some things have incubation periods where they're not going to show up until a long time after you've been exposed. And I hate the idea as well that it's like, it's just cheating, it's not a big deal, because even if this person was using condoms with everybody that they were sleeping with every single time, the issue would still remain, is that they were not being truthful. And the fundamental core of BDSM, no matter how you're engaging in it, is always trust and honesty. And if you do not have trust and honesty, that's not a healthy BDSM. In my mind, that's not healthy BDSM. I don't think you can have BDSM where there is not safety and trust. That is just the bottom line for me. That is how I see things. So yes, cheating is a big deal, because if anything else, it indicates a behavior pattern where the person doesn't really care about informing the people that they're with what's really going on, so long as it suits their needs, because that means to them their desire to have multiple relationships and to have sex with as many people as they want matters more than the informed consent of the people that they are involved with. And that, to me, indicates a potential for that person to potentially relay that mindset into BDSM play. Now, that doesn't mean that they did that in play. Nothing that I read so far about these situations indicates that that translated into a play situation, but that means that that person is at least willing to lie there. They are at least willing to manipulate about this. So what else have they been lying about? What else have they manipulated? What else have they done that their partners don't even potentially know about yet? And that's a big deal. No, it isn't somebody getting branded in the butt with an iron without being asked about it first, but it is still really shitty, and especially because of the way that they reacted to it, because after all of these partners found out that this was happening to them, it was nothing but further manipulation and lies and trying to control the situation and pretend like it wasn't a big deal, and just awful, awful, awful things, just telling these people that basically that their opinion, their experience of reality didn't really matter because, oh no, I didn't really do that. Oh no, I didn't mean to hurt anybody. Oh no, I didn't realize you didn't know that. Just lies on top of lies on top of lies. Whatever they needed to say to get out of being the bad guy, they would say. And that is just not okay for anybody. Now, I don't really want to keep rambling here. I think this video by itself is long enough, so I'm gonna go ahead and say that there's gonna be a part 2 where I specifically address the issues around blaming people for not having the intuition you expect them to have, and blaming people or telling people that have mental health issues that they shouldn't be in the BDSM community, because that is a whole other situation. So hopefully for now you found this interesting. Hopefully this gives you something to think about. It's definitely a very heavy subject, but I think it is one that's important to discuss. So I don't really think that we should be minimizing situations like this. I think they are really important to talk about, even if they don't involve the stereotypical offenses we normally do. But I am going to be doing that part 2 like I mentioned, so if you want to check that out, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. I make videos twice a week. Thank you guys so much for being here and for watching this. If you want to support my channel, if you want to help me be able to make more videos along these lines, the best place you can do that is over on Patreon. Link to that will be down in the description box below. Thank you so much. If you do already support me over there, it means the absolute world to me. And until I see you guys next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.